so much support from independents.
Well, I don't know who's conducting the poll. I don't know if it's a statewide poll or a national poll. I can tell you that the most recent poll examining Tea Party, self-identified Tea Party supporters indicates that the huge majority are Republican voters or independents who have voted Republican in past general elections. We see similar trends in our numbers. Additionally, though, it seems to be a stable number in the context of 3.6 million registered Ohioans, party identified, 2.5 Democrat, 1.4 Republican. It seems a fairly consistent number, however, are within the Republican Party already, and that these folks, already Republican, consistently voting Republican, these individuals are now upset, for whatever reasons, with the political environment in this country, and have collectively raised their voice, literally, to reflect their concerns. But these are already Republican voters.
So you think this is Republican Party spin, basically?
I mean, the numbers in this case don't lie, and clearly indicate that there is no enthusiasm gap as it relates to Democrat versus Republican, and there's no groundswell of support overwhelming, swamping Democrats across the state. It's just empirically, there's no evidence quite yet of that, and we don't suspect to see any, even going into the primary election day, the traditional large day when Democrats vote in a traditional setting. Early vote in the past, albeit it's only over the course of the last 3 years we've had early vote. Democrats by and large vote on primary day versus Republicans who consistently vote absentee at larger numbers, in larger numbers. So we expect our numbers to get even better going through the primary season. I'm going to, with Jeff's help, in May, do another gathering just like this to look at what the numbers tell us after all the votes have been cast. And I hope it bears out what I'm suggesting, and what the numbers are suggesting today.
On the Democratic enthusiasm, do you think that it sort of reflects which races are up? I mean, U.S. Senate versus
fair question.
Kind of more down ticket sleepers.
Sure, it's a fair question until you just peel away and look at the numbers, and you see that first we're neutral in the Senate race, all right, and the Republican Party is not neutral in their races. They've endorsed John Husted and David Yost in their respective races. And while Kevin has had to pour, in the case of John Husted's race, the filing suggests that $350,000 thus far have been spent in in-kind contributions on behalf of John's campaign in the primary filing. Kevin Dwine's had to pour literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to support his pre-primary candidates. You would think that that would drive the enthusiasm of his Republican base, and quite the opposite, as you see, is occurring. More Democrats are turning out, and the state party has not printed one sample ballot.
Chris, you said there were 21,690 Democrats, registered Democrats, requesting Republican ballots.
Yes.
Do you have the number for registered Republicans requesting Democratic ballots?
Yeah, I do. Jeff, you have it in front of you as well, so I don't have to shuffle papers.
3,506.
Now that trend is reversed from 08 and from 08, where you had more Republicans requesting Democratic ballots, and at the time that was sort of explained as an enthusiasm gap on the other side, that more people were interested in the Democratic Party and the groundswell. I mean, what are you attributing this change entirely to the presidential primary in 08?
I don't know who attributed it or described that way in 2008. I did not. I don't know if Dr. Beck or somebody else could have. I'm not denying that it's not the case. I'm saying point blank that those individuals who joined us in 2008 in the primary that you suggest were part of a Democratic enthusiasm gap or something, not to misstate it, those folks had voted historically Republican. And in the case of those folks who are joining the Republican Party from the Democratic side of the aisle, what you'll see is they're not only fewer, or smaller percentage as well. So not just in raw numbers, but in percentages, as you've reflected in previous articles, but also in real numbers. that the levels are far more diminished. Now, I'm not, the numbers are what they are, and Jeff points out those numbers to you. But in the context of not just those Democrats who are switching to Republican, or Republicans switching to Democrats, first-time voters, independents, self-described independents, are joining us in higher numbers. And in total, there are now 100,000 more Democrats than Republicans than there were in 2008, which was described at that time as the largest turnout of Democrats in the state's history. So while anecdotally we can point to different areas where perhaps Democrats have slipped, the numbers don't lie, and we've picked up dramatically more numbers than our Republican counterparts.
One of the challenges in 2008, and if I remember correctly, 2008 was the first election where African American turnout, white turnout actually, in fact, I think African American turnout was a little bit higher than overall white turnout. Very comparable. The idea was that African American voters and young voters and everything were energized, and a lot of white GOP voters were dispirited. And one of the things that the folks in the Tea Party movement are arguing or saying is that what the Tea Party folks are arguing is that there's a generation of folks who are angry, energized, who may be Republican leaning but didn't get involved and are now engaged. Mm-hmm. Are you concerned that, obviously some of these GOP voters are angry? Are you concerned that some of the voters that came out in 2008 are they going to be energized to come out in 2008?
It's a good point, because my focus is on the empirical evidence. But of the 1.4 million Ohioans who are now registered Republican, perhaps of that number, not more, but of that number, will it be more people just turning out helping to get Republicans elected, and their enthusiasm would be from their established numbers rather than new people joining. Whereas the Democrats, we may enjoy a 1.1 million vote advantage in terms of registration, but because there's nothing going on, we just won't turn out. If that were the case, Gil, what you would see, in my estimation, is that you would see a larger new vote turnout based on that enthusiasm and that work ethic and that joining together on behalf of Republican candidates. You would see an uptick in terms of the vote turnout for those Republican candidates. And you would also see a bit of an increase in voter registration for new registrants, because that's a typical organizing tool for political parties. And in both cases, you've not seen it quite yet. Now, maybe something will change in the next 2 weeks. Maybe something will change on primary day that would reflect something differently as we look at the numbers. But at the end of the day, they may be shouting louder than us, but there are no more of them. There are no, there are no more of them than there were in 2008. There are actually 100,000 fewer. You follow me?
So what do you think is...
Poorly stated, but nonetheless, I think you understand.
Is this a Fox News phenomenon, or what do you think is driving this whole thing we're hearing all the time?
I think our activists and both base supporters are going door to door and collecting information and putting it on the voter file. We're not attending rallies and holding up signs comparing Barack Obama to Adolf Hitler. And we're not inviting any of our statewide candidates or those seeking the U.S. Senate seat to speak before us. The Republican Party is. I mean, think about it. Rob Portman and John Kasich are speaking before organizations, self-described Tea Party organizations, that many of their members compare Barack Obama, our president, as a Kenyan native who is some socialist comparable to Adolf Hitler. In my father's Republican Party, I think there'd be some distancing between mainstream Republicans, self-described mainstream Republicans, and those elements within the Republican Party that make Kevin DeWine's life a bit more challenging today.